Hello and welcome to another edition of the Fifth Quarter, first playoff edition of the Fifth Quarter. I am Mike Ciarochi, sports editor of the Herald Standard, and I'm joined as always by George von Benko, author of Memory Lane and a personality, outstanding sports personality at WNBS Radio.
Checks in the mail.
Yeah. Of course, George, speaking of checks in the mail, some of the Steelers are going to be cashing playoff checks, hopefully not very soon, but they are in the playoffs and they are set to host the division rival Baltimore Ravens this Saturday, 4:30 at Heinz Field. Kind of a matchup, I guess everybody, at least I did. I expected this to happen. I expected the Jets to beat Indy yesterday.
I didn't. I was hoping that Indy, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not completely sold on Mark Sanchez. That's the reason I thought that they would lose at Indianapolis. And really, had they not given up the special teams gaff and given them that field position on the kickoff, they might not be coming or going to New England. Indianapolis might be coming to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
That's another reason. My show on Saturday is another reason why you shouldn't bet on football.
Okay.
Because I saw no way that Seattle was going to beat New Orleans.
Yeah.
I thought that the Indianapolis Colts would win at home against the Jets. I sort of liked Philadelphia because they were at home against the Green Bay Packers. And I did like Baltimore on the road, so I'm 1 for 3.
There you go. And, you know, wild card teams, as it turns out, were 3 out of 4.
Well, the thing that sort of makes you wonder about it is what you just said. The road teams.
Right.
I mean, home field advantage didn't mean very much.
No, not a whole lot. But it's looking back on that Indy game, there was also the drop pass late in the game that would have been a first down, possibly a game-winning, you would think, touchdown for the Colts. But hey, it's all frozen water under the bridge as we speak. I don't think it surprised anyone that Baltimore was able to handle Kansas City. Even though they trailed at halftime, or they were up 10-7 at halftime, they trailed.
They took it. They laid a lumber to them pretty good.
Yeah, they did, and that's not really surprising. I mean, you kind of saw this matchup coming, and I don't mind the matchup. I think the Steelers can beat Baltimore again. Not saying that they will, but they're capable. I mean, these games always go down to the wire.
I figured they were going to have to do something with Baltimore. I was hoping Baltimore would go to New England because they have beaten New England in the past, and this makes the road more difficult for Pittsburgh than it would have been before.
Or Baltimore. And whichever team wins this game, I mean, it's such a physical game when the Steelers and Ravens get together. I think whoever wins this game, you may want to call them the survivor. Whoever survives this game is going to be beat up going to New England more than likely.
So you keep your fingers crossed that there aren't any serious injuries, but the tenor of these games with Baltimore has been a heavyweight championship.
Oh yeah,
and it's going to be. People are calling it round 3. It is round 3.
It's a knockdown dragout. Yep, and I wouldn't be surprised if a field goal or less decides the outcome.
Well, I was looking at a graphic that they put up on ESPN the other night after the playoff games were played, and I wish I had a pen handy to copy it down. It is just amazing. Since they've become the Baltimore Ravens, I believe they have played the Steelers 17 times. The Steelers lead 9-8. That's as close as it gets. The scoring was like 2 or 3 points apart. The yardage was like 25 yards apart. The turnovers was a difference of 1. It's just amazing how close this series is. And look at the last few games. Steelers have never lost a playoff games to the Ravens, beating them in the 2001 divisional playoff game 27-10 at Heinz Field. And, of course, they beat Flacco in that one game in 2008. Where is it here? Indeed, 5 of the past 6 regular season games between the Steelers and Ravens have been decided by 3 points, including both this season. The other game was decided by 4.
Wow, that's about as close as it gets. And really, when you look at the two teams, they're almost a mirror image of themselves. There's a lot of similarities. Good, strong running game. Very strong defense. Tight end who's very active in the passing game. hard to pick out a major difference, except maybe Super Bowl experience for the Steelers.
And it's interesting you should say that they're mirror images of one another. The last time they played, the game the Steelers won in Baltimore when Polamalu made the great play and knocked the ball away from Flacco on the sack. Leading into that game, I was talking with several of the Steelers on Wednesday at practice, and I mentioned to I believe it was Ryan Clark, I said, is there an intense dislike? He said, there's no question we don't like each other. And he says, but, a lot of that is because we're so much alike. He says, and that breeds even more contempt for one another, because it's like you're playing against, you're going against their defense, it's like playing against our defense.
And there's got to be some pride in the sense that we do what we do better than you do what we do. And there are so many similarities. I guess it could go on and on with the similarities. Let's talk a little bit about the two games the teams played against each other this year.
The first game, of course, that was Ben's last game of suspension. Right. And, I still wonder about the end of that ball game and just what happened. They were penned up deep near their own goal line. And the thing that struck me, especially if you look at it in light of what happened the next week when Ben was back against Cleveland in a similar situation, they didn't want to let Charlie Batch throw the ball. They were trying to do that. They let Ben throw the ball against Cleveland, and they got a first down, and they got out of there. And it just sort of illustrates just what happened. And then they made several other mistakes, with the punt and the penalty after the punt, and just gave great field position. But Roethlisberger not being there, you can't account for that.
Yeah. Now, I was kind of doing a little forward thinking or looking at these matchups this weekend in the AFC, and I think I may have hit on something, and I guess Steeler fans should hope this doesn't come to pass, but Baltimore, I believe, has a chance to become the first wild card team to ever host a playoff game, and it would be an AFC Championship game if they are able to beat the Steelers
and the Jets
knock off New England. They are the 5, and the Ravens are the 5, and the Jets are the 6. So the the Ravens would host the AFC Championship game as a wild card. I don't believe that's ever happened. A wild card team hosting a playoff game.
I'm not sure about that. I'd have to go back and look. I don't recall off the top of my head that ever happened. Then again, we've seen some things happen in the playoffs. I mean, Seattle at 7-9, winning a division and hosting a playoff game. That's never happened before.
8-9 and still playing.
But you mentioned matchups, and I look at what's going on in the big difference with Baltimore, and we talked about this when we played them before, but it is still the thing that sticks out the most to me, is what Anquan Bolden brings to the table for the Ravens. I mean, that's something they did not really have before. He had several big plays in the game that they lost down in Baltimore. The Ravens lost, and then they sort of took him away. But he is sort of an X factor for me, because that's something that Baltimore has not had in the past.
No, I agree with you. In the earlier game, the winning touchdown was scored by one T.J. Houshmandzadeh,
former Benko.
Coming back to haunt the Steelers again. But I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. I think the networks, and I believe this is a CBS game, is it not?
Yes.
They really, it's what a great kickoff for a weekend of divisional playoffs.
And if people haven't heard, I'm sure everybody has by now, but it is a 4:30 kickoff on Saturday, January the 15th.
Yes. What did you think about the NFC? How's that all shaken down?
Well, I was surprised that Green Bay, not really surprised, because Aaron Rodgers is a very, very good quarterback. But the thing that surprised me there is one of the most reliable kickers in football.
David
failed the Eagles twice, and that game's a completely different ball game if he makes those field goals.
But the Eagles have been at least erratic, I guess, the last few weeks. Everyone keeps pointing back to the Giants game when they were down, I believe, 31.
But they were so lucky to win that game.
Yes, yeah.
And they're so lucky that the punter punted the ball to Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah. And there he was, standing back there waiting for a punt, egging the crowd on and all that. But, it's just people kept going back to that game and the fluky nature of how they were able to pull it out.
So Green Bay winning, that really is not a shock of them winning. No. The other game, I'm completely flabbergasted by that game.
Yeah.
I did not expect Seattle to do what they did. And I got to look at New Orleans, and those guys didn't show up. They didn't play defense. They didn't do anything.
No, and it looked like at the end of the first half, I believe it was 24-20, they kicked a field goal late at the end of the first half. And I thought, well, okay, second half, we'll see the Saints coming in. They're kind of making strides. But Seattle just took it to them in the second half.
Well, and we saw one of the great runs in playoff history, Marshawn Lynch.
Yes.
If you haven't seen it yet, and I'm sure people, it is unbelievable.
It
really
is.
Be
all over the internet, on YouTube, and everywhere by now. But it was just amazing how he just bounced off of tackler after tackler and found his way to the end zone.
And of course, in the AFC, we've talked about it. I really expected Baltimore to punch Kansas City in the mouth, and they did. I think Kansas City was sort of exposed the previous week against Oakland. I mean, this is a team that got in, but they had a lot of warts.
Yes, and I believe I heard him say there were only 3 or 4, maybe 5 players on the Chiefs roster with playoff experience. And you know what? That's something you cannot practice. You cannot. You could have a month worth of practice, and you're not going to gain any playoff experience.
No, and the other ball game, as I said, I have not been completely sold on Sanchez at quarterback. In fact, when I did the show, the fifth quarter with Mark O'Keefe, leading into the playoff wild card weekend, I mentioned a stat that jumped out at me. In the last 9 ball games, I believe, or maybe it was 10, coming into that wild card weekend, Mark Sanchez's quarterback rating in the second half of all of those games amounted to 66%.
Wow.
That's not very good.
No.
Yeah, and he didn't really light it up the other night, but I give him credit when he had to make a play. That throw, the back shoulder throw to Braylon Edwards, and he made a play.
Yeah. So do you give the Jets even a little bit of a chance against New England?
And I shouldn't say that, having said that I don't give the New Orleans Saints, the Seattle Seahawks, any chance against New Orleans Saints. I should learn my lesson right now. This is my father always told me, don't bet. There's a reason why he told me don't bet.
Keep your money in your own pocket.
That's right. But no, they beat him 45-3 the last meeting. Although, of the 2 losses this year that New England has suffered, one was earlier in the season at the hands of the Jets. In week 2, they lost 28-14. But I just think that Tom Brady, he hasn't lost a playoff game up there in I don't know how many years. He is just on a roll right now. And I get back to what I said before. Is Mark Sanchez going to be able to do enough to keep up with the Bradys?
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. So I guess that should pretty much wrap it up. I did want to take a second and
tell me who you like the Steelers' chances.
Oh as I said starting off, I like their chances to win. It wouldn't surprise me if they lost. It's just going to be such a tough battle. It's good that they're at home. I believe the line. I haven't really studied it. I believe they're a 3-point favorite. That's because they're the home team. So even the Vegas odds makers.
It's going to be fun because I agree with Terrell Suggs and some of the other people. This has developed into the best rivalry in football. And I'll go back to what I always said. The reason for that is they may be wearing purple and black and call themselves the Ravens, but deep down inside they are still the Cleveland Browns.
Okay. Okay, and that will wrap up this edition of the Fifth Quarter. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and I do want to thank my boss, Mark O'Keefe, for filling in for me last week. We'll be back again next week, hopefully with good news. Hopefully the Steelers will be headed for the AFC Championship game. Till then, goodbye.